Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk to you guys about Thor. Now, I loved doing the first two videos on how to make Black Panther and how to make Hulk great. I really enjoyed the feedback that you guys gave me, and I really was surprised and delighted to see how many of you really wanted to see me do Thor. Now, I know that Thor may not be the best character to do at the moment because the Asgardian update is coming. We're not really sure when it's coming, but it's going to be pretty soon. So this video might, it could go one of two ways. Basically, this video could prophesize a lot of the changes that they're going to make to Thor, and it could turn out really well. Or Thor could turn out even better than we expect, better than I'm anticipating in this video, which is fantastic. I would love that, most of all. Or thirdly, and hopefully least likely of all, Thor gets a really bad tier 2, and we're all sitting here wishing that this video had come true. But Thor cleared this level quite quickly, quite handily, and so we gotta give it up to the God of Thunder. He's one of the founding members of the Avengers. He's super iconic. I mean, he gave Chris Hemsworth a career to stand on with his roles in the Thor movies and in the Avengers series. And he's the God of Thunder. I mean, Thor suffers in the same way in this game that Black Bolt did prior to getting his tier 2. They're kings or princes. They're, among the strongest and most beloved characters in Marvel history and Marvel comics. Ongoing, not just like an old love, but this is like an ongoing love. And yet in Future Fight, they're not represented accurately or even near the level of accuracy that they should be. So, excuse me for not having Thor's movie uniform, because frankly it sucks, and that's one thing that I wish that they would give Thor, is a good uniform. We might be getting one soon, but for now his uniform sucks, so we're just sticking with the regular one. But they did do a couple of things right with Thor that we do have to acknowledge at the onset. So I do think that Thor has really great damage for the character that he is. He deals very high DPS. He does so very quickly. As you guys saw in the clearing of 10-8, his skills are all very fast, and they go through the animations very, very quickly. So the damage per second, all those D's in there getting stuck in my mouth. The damage per second is very, very high, given that he doesn't spend a lot of time going through his skills. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any kind of CC on anything. He has a guard break on his hammer throw, but that's it, and it's got a long windup. Other than that, he's just a regular cookie cutter damage character from a bygone era. He's kind of like Hulk in that way, that he has skills that deal damage, and that's it. There's very little creativity. There's very little uniqueness to set Thor apart from any of the other characters of this mold. And actually, Thor is less creative than someone like Jane Foster, who is like, a descendant of Thor. You can't really have Jane Foster Thor without regular Thor, and yet, her kit, her skills are more interesting. She's got even a more interesting and a better leadership. And overall, she's a more fun character to play than Thor is. So that's pretty disappointing when the protege is better than the master, so to speak. So what do they need to change about Thor? Well, a lot. I mean, I really don't like, for example, his passive skill. I think it's pretty boring. It's got a terrible cooldown with a 5% trigger rate. Just bad. Leadership, horrible. I mean, they haven't made any of these leaderships useful in the longest time, and I don't think they ever will. Thor is basically only useful for Shadowland at this point. He's a little bit more useful than someone like Hulk because his skills have a little bit of AoE. They have a little bit of area of effect, like the Maelstrom and the Battle Rage. So you can kind of preemptively dodge the boss's attack and then cast your skill while the boss is recovering, but it's very difficult to maneuver around and to move around with Thor because he's pretty slow and he can't really take a hit. That's one thing that I think Netmarble should look into about changing Thor, is that Thor is way too squishy for a universal character, first of all, but also for being an Asgardian and being a god. He needs some kind of bubble, or he needs some kind of super defense or something to remedy that. But I wanted to focus this video more on the things that I want Netmarble to add to Thor, because I did spend quite a bit of time thinking up some different routes they could go with, and I wanted to come up with something more clever, and I wanted to come up with some things that are more original than the bleed stuff for Black Panther, than the damage stacks for Hulk. I wanted to come up with something better. So here's my take on how they can improve Thor, and I think they should focus on his lightning. I mean, he's the god of thunder for a reason, and they should play into his strengths. And so I think they should try to make some kind of lightning-centric theme around Thor that can kind of be his hallmark or his calling card and kind of the go-to for that character. So I did think of something along the line of shock stacks. I used to play a game called Path of Exile, where they have different elemental types, and the different elements will do something different. So, you know, cold will have a chance to freeze, lightning will have a chance to shock, and when someone is shocked, they take more damage from all sources for X seconds. So the shock stacks could do a couple of different things. So when Thor does, you know, an attack with any of his skills, or when he does just a particular skill, they could just have one or two of his skills apply shock stacks, but then those shock stacks could do a multitude of different things. And I think that's where Netmarble can get creative, and they can start to think of different things to add to this shock mechanic in order to make it more complex, in order to make lightning resist actually a useful real thing. And so I'm going to run another mission here to kind of give you guys an example of what I'm talking about while I'm explaining it. So the idea with the shock stacks is it could just have a flat increased damage, as I explained from another game that I'm kind of pulling this idea from. And so if a character or an enemy didn't die from the first hit of Thor's lightning attack, he would get a shock stack, and that shock stack would then increase all of the damage that that character would take from incoming sources. So let's say that lasted for 5 seconds. Theoretically, you could lightning damage with Thor to build up some shock stacks, maybe 1 or 2 or whatever, and then switch to another character and deal a massive hit, because those shock stacks are weakening the character further. And you can take that in a couple of different directions as well. It doesn't have to be just increased damage. The shock stacks could lead up to a stun. So if you get 1 shock stack and then you get up to 4 shock stacks without it refreshing, then you get stunned. Similar to the meteor mechanic. So even if you're playing as Loki and you have your shield up when you're playing in the Meteor Alliance Battle Days, if you get hit by 4 meteors in a row in a certain amount of time, you will become stunned for like 3 or 4 seconds. It's a very long stun, it's very punishing, and it makes it so that you can't just mindlessly stand in the path of the meteors. You actually still have to dodge them. And that would make these lightning characters a lot more formidable, because things like dodge would become important. Otherwise, you build up those shock stacks, you get stunned. Similarly, or similar to Doctor Strange's freeze mechanic, it would be kind of like that, except it wouldn't just be instantaneous. You'd have to build up these shock stacks. Alternatively, you could have the shock stacks apply a lightning resistance debuff. So every time you get hit by one of Thor's attacks, your lightning defense, your lightning resistance gets lower and lower and lower until it's in the negatives, until you're taking massive damage from any lightning source. Again, you know, similar to the first idea, but different in its own way to kind of make things different. And it would also potentially solve the problem of the fact that they introduced a character or a uniform, I should say, that limited the design space. So one thing that does limit how powerful any of these lightning damage characters can be, but especially the Asgardians, because that's basically the ones that use it the most, sorry Nebula, is the fact that Groot's uniform gives him lightning damage immunity. So they could give Thor a tier 2 where he can pierce through any kind of immunity as long as enough of these shock stacks have been built up. That could even go for regular immunity on, let's say, Doctor Strange's 6-star skill. So the application is really varied, and it has a lot of different avenues they can go down with it. They could also have the lightning damage deal damage residually. So they kind of do that with the power of Asgard, but it's so pathetic, it's such a wet noodle that it's basically useless. So instead, what I thought they could do is, you know, if Thor connects with like Thundering Maelstrom, for example, it'll do an additional 10% of its damage for the next 10 seconds. So if the character is running around, almost like a bleed effect, it will keep on shocking them. A couple of other things that I thought that they could do for Thor that I would like to see and that I think would be really, really cool is this is the big one that I thought of. I thought of a game, Diablo 3, and in that game, the barbarian, the barbar, has a skill that they summon the Wrath of the Ancients, and basically these ancient bosses or ancient guardians are summoned temporarily, and they're like gold, and they have different buffs, and they apply different team bonuses, and then they go berserk for like 10 or 15 seconds, then they disappear, and you're left alone again. And I thought, because Asgard is such a, such a fantastic mystical place, it's a, the home of the gods, there's all these different people there, like Heimdall, or I'm sorry if I'm fucking up his name, Odin, Loki, Thor, like there are so many big characters, there's so many big, towering personalities. Wouldn't it be cool if Thor's tier 2 passive was, with a 30% chance when Thor is being hit, it summons 3 random Asgardian heroes to aid Thor for 10 seconds. And I think this would be so cool, because it's not like a clone where you summon it and they just do damage. These are actually like heroes or villains, because it could be Loki, are popping up and they're actively doing something for you. It's almost like your friends have joined your game for about 10 seconds and they're casting skills randomly. It's not just set auto attacking or whatever. Maybe they have buffs or they have debuffs that they're applying actively and for the duration of their summoning to the game. So, Angela could come in and apply like a fire dot damage effect to the whole arena to deal damage over time to all of the enemies. Sif could come in and have like an HP boost. So she's got an aura around her, and if you're close enough to Sif, your HP goes up by 50%. And so you kind of have to chase her around while you're still doing your attacks, so you get this massive HP buff increase, whatever. Odin could come in and give Thor like, 100% attack speed and 200% damage increase for like 3 seconds. There are so many things they could do with a skill like that. It would look so fucking cool, because I know Netmarble could animate that skill properly to have these guys just pop out or just get summoned from the heavens on a giant like golden cloud, and it would be one of the most epic tier 2s ever. And I really think it would fit with the Norse mythology and all of Thor's history, and the fact that he's always, it's not just Thor you're getting Asgard with it. He's kind of part and parcel of that area and that realm. So to kind of integrate Asgard a little bit more into Thor's character would be really cool, and it would really show love to the character who basically defines that realm. Odin is the boss or whatever. Loki's the main villain. He's more popular maybe right now amongst like teenagers who like Tom Hiddleston. I don't fucking know. Squealing girls, cue them. But Thor is the man in my eyes, and so a skill like that, a tier 2 trigger, passive, whatever like that, would just be epic. And I would love to see them animate that in the game. And I mean, they don't have to stop there. They could do that for other characters as well. So those are my thoughts for Thor. That's what I think needs to happen to make him great. He definitely needs a very strong tier 2. They definitely need to address that his skills are basically just damage skills and they do nothing else. There's no CC, there's no procs, there's no damage over time, there's no iframes basically, there's no healing, there's nothing. So they need to give him more spice. They need to put a lot of like cayenne pepper into this dude, and hopefully some of my suggestions are coming in the pipeline, or hopefully preferably something even better. So let me know what you guys think about Thor. Let me know how you would fix this character or make this character great if you had the molding clay in your hands. And of course, guys, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.